Recording in progress.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. This is the Finance Administration meeting for September 19th. My name is Jim Spear. I'm the chair. The other members of this committee are Mike Salmonson, who's the vice chair. No? No.
I'm the vice chair.
Sorry, I'm getting my kid.
You're the vice chair.
Yes.
And Michael Gardine.
You know, vice president.
All right. We're going to use this take, so we're going to roll with it. Matt West, borough manager, is here. Gazzardo, assistant borough manager. And Chief String is here, surprise to me. You're here to talk about police vehicles, right?
No, actually, see the budget amendment, I think, or police vehicles.
Okay, let's check it.
Yeah,
They're in the way.
All right, so do we have minutes for August? Anybody? I don't think I saw those.
You weren't here, and I was running the meeting as
Okay.
vice chair, so there we go. It just shows how uncommon we are.
That's okay, we can look at them next month. So let's go to the treasurer's report, Mr. West.
The treasurer's report was included in the meeting packet for today's committee meeting, and I was wondering if anybody had any questions. I just wanted to, if I could use this time to also talk about budget 2025 preparations. Some of these numbers might be adjusting here from month to month. As I'm going through and looking at our 2024 numbers in preparation for the 2025 numbers, I'm going into each one of these expense accounts and just making some adjustments, moving some of the monies to other expense accounts just to make sure they're in the right buckets. But we are tracking on a pretty good trajectory for the rest of this year. I finished this afternoon my first take of the 2025 budget, and I'm looking at projecting where we're going to end up. I use this first a September projection, take it with a grain of salt, right? It'll kind of give us a good idea of where we're going to end up. But really, as we get closer to the end of the year is where it becomes more accurate. But I'm pretty excited about where things are headed right now. And you're going to hear later this evening also, and I'll tell you all as well, that looking at our debt service, if you remember, the 2024 budget included budgeting the entire year for 4 different general obligation notes, one of which we never drew down on. And we knew that going into 2024. There was a $1.5 million general obligation note that was taken out in 2022, specifically for the 201 Sabine, some repairs for 201 Sabine. We have not, it was never drawn down on, and we had an October 1st drawdown date, October 1st, 2024. So I went and arranged a meeting with our bond experts, our bond counsel and advisors, to talk about whether or not we should draw that down. It's at 5.63%, 5.65%, $1.5 million. Are there any strings attached? Do we have to spend it really quickly? Does it make sense for us to take it since we've already been approved and just park it in a bank account somewhere and incorporate that into our capital improvement fund? And we kind of came to the conclusion that we shouldn't take it. Just the way, if you heard the news today, the Fed cut interest rates. Right. And even in talking to the bond professionals last week, they said they've been successful in getting, numbers have been all over the place, but we're pretty confident that if we would need to go out for additional borrowing, that we would be able to get a rate much better than 5.65%. Yeah. So my recommendation is to not draw down on it. Let that drawdown date expire. I even went so far as to ask if the bank would extend the drawdown date just to give us some more time. They said they would be willing to extend it for 6 months. But, at this point, my recommendation is to not. And that would free up $217,000 in this year's budget. That, coupled with tracking really well with our earned income tax, we're gonna have some pretty good options.
To it.
We're gonna have some pretty good options here in the next month or two, and you'll see another budget amendment come out from me to talk about what we should do with that expected surplus. If you remember, the 2024 budget does not include any transfer to the capital fund.
Right.
So I think you're gonna read telegraphing where I'm gonna go with that we should, my recommendation to council would be to allocate most, if not all of that surplus to the capital improvement fund. This is kind of the 10,000-foot view right now. I don't have the details. Once I get into October, I'll feel a little more comfortable with more specific numbers. But the decision point, you don't have to make the decision. My recommendation, unless I hear it strongly from you all, is to just not draw down on that $1.5 million, let it ride. If we do need additional funding, we can then, we can move forward with that after the new year. There's no immediate need for it right now. I even explored, okay, we've got this $750,000 down payment that we're gonna need for the bridge. Can we use that, park it in an account, leverage some interest to pay for that? It's not worth financing that down payment. And if I could continue a little bit, these are some of my notes that I was gonna talk to the rest of the council about this evening as well. That $750,000 down payment, my strong recommendation is, you're gonna see tonight the sale of the parking lot that is uptown, curiously close to that number.
Yeah.
My professional recommendation, strong recommendation, is for council to earmark that $700,000 specifically for that $750,000 down payment. Transfer it to the capital fund, put it in its own cash account if needed, just segregate it. Because that's cash that we will get back 100%.
Right.
But we have to
Getting
carry it.
interest from when we eventually get the reimbursement, where we just get it, whatever the amount is.
Like if we would finance it or?
If we make the
No.
750, when we get it back, they just give us the principal back.
I assumed that was the answer, but I was.
Yeah. I even had could we get reimbursed for the financing too? No, it's just for the cost of it. And Amtrak would take it and they're not gonna give us any of that interest back. So,
When do we have to make that down payment?
good question. Man, two of us were like leading each other here. This is great. Not sure yet. So,
Because we can make, depending on when we get the parking money, we might be able to make a little bit money on the club.
that's where I'm going with it, and that's what I'm hoping to do. Interest rates are coming down a little bit, but I have a meeting scheduled with Pliget, Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust, next week. We have closed all of our cash accounts with them prior to my tenure, and I would like to open cash accounts again with them because they offer interest rates above 5% right now. And so we should be banking it.
Yeah.
We should that's kind of a segue into what I'm going to talk about a little bit later also. How can we make our money work for us to then start offsetting our long-term liabilities?
Yeah.
That's a long way to answer your question. I don't know when we're going to need the down payment. My expectation is that once they approve that construction agreement, say, yep, this is when it's going to go. You are on the construction schedule. That's when we need to make that down payment. Sources at PennDOT have said, don't make that payment until you actually have to make that payment. Boot Road Bridge is just getting started. We cannot move forward with our getting on the construction schedule until Boot Road is complete. I am confident that we will be the next one, but we are at Amtrak's will on that next project. It is still on track, pun intended, to get let spring 2025. This spring, the project, final design is done. It's going through final review for constructability and safety. Minor things just some adjustments that need to be made. Once it goes to the let phase, then it will go out for about 3 months. The contractor will be selected. That notice to proceed should happen late 2025, but we don't know what the start date will be because that's what's hung up with Amtrak getting on their construction schedule. Realistically, If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I'd say probably 2 years would be.
I told somebody on the train yesterday it's gonna be fall of 2020.
It will be, the contractor will be selected, but to actually start the work, now granted, there will be work that will be starting, because like about a year, like the first year is gonna be utility type work, so you will see work happening.
That's what I said, okay.
It's just not gonna get
Anyway.
replaced, like the lion's share of it's not gonna get replaced until Amtrak is able to get us on their construction schedule.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, we knew that we were gonna have to wait for them to be done with the other one first.
But it's not like it's just gonna be sitting there like it is now.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of utility work that has to happen ahead of time. Amtrak has to build 2 catenary structures on either side of the bridge ahead of time to, to transfer the power line. So you will see activity up there relatively soon. Sorry, I kind of got off track here, but it's all linked into this budget versus actual budget, tracking these numbers. You're gonna see some adjustments to these numbers month over month. One thing that I was, I still haven't figured out yet is the 201 save line. The numbers that are showing up in our budget versus actual, they're not accurate yet. It's a weird, the cash is right, all of our cash is right. It's how we account for it, because we have to account, and you're gonna see this in the audit, we need to account for the entire nugget that we get from Yentis. And then you back out all of the expenses. Historically, we've only been booking the revenue. We need to do it a little differently. And so I haven't done that yet. So I was looking at it today, and I think it should be what we've gotten. We've only gotten 2 payments. We get quarterly payments, and it's about $350,000 that we've gotten in revenue from 201 State Line for this year. So that puts us on track to be pretty close to the budgeted amount for 2020. And that's just revenue only. Then you have to slide down to the expenses and look at all of the expenses for 201 State Line, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you do the math, and that's how much we net. And if I can just keep riffing here for a little bit and just talk about the audit, because it's all kind of intermixed. The audit is done. Yep, we just received the draft, just received the draft last Friday, I can't remember, one early, a couple of days ago. I did a first review, looks pretty good. We have a significant amount of journal entries that we have to do just to clean up the books, but no significant findings.
Cool.
Once we put a fork in that, we'll have the auditor come and make that presentation. Our goal next year is to make sure we get closer to that April 30th deadline than we did this year.
Good goal. Good progress.
I had one question on the P&L. There's, under other current assets, there's this account receivable auditor. It's like almost 300,000.
Yeah, so
I
that's,
don't know how I haven't seen that before, but I have no idea what that is.
yeah, that is an auditor adjustment. And so these are the things that we need to clean
On the
up.
balance sheet.
We need to clean up.
Okay.
It shouldn't be showing up. These are things that are entered due to the conclusion of audits, and audit adjustments. So those are the types of things that I'm looking to clean up moving forward.
Okay. Because I saw it there as an asset, and then there is a liability sort of on the other side, but it's for a lot less. And I was like, what next?
Yeah, and if you look at the balance sheet, that total liabilities and equity includes all of the estimated value of all things that we,
Yeah.
it's not just your cash balance,
Yeah,
it's
no.
everything.
I know, and some of those liabilities are real liabilities, they're just book liabilities.
Yes.
Same with the assets, but I just didn't know what, it's listed as an accounts receivable. And I was like, like the auditor doesn't give us money, but just struck me as an odd entry. I couldn't figure out what it was supposed to be.
Anytime you see auditor, it means it's an entry that the auditor has recommended. that we make.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not to or from the auditor.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool.
Anything more on audit update? Any other questions? Am I supposed to get to schedule the bills? I don't see it on the-
There, 3
Action item.
Oh, 3A, okay, got it, okay. Let's go on to schedule bills then. Questions on bills?
I didn't see anything. You have any comments, man, or?
I'm sorry, I was waiting, motion and second.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I'll motion, to recommend schedule bills for the general sewer, solid waste, capital, highway, and green funds totaling $543,000, $826, and 69 cents.
I will second.
So the only oddball thing on this schedule of bills is J&J Environmental, and that was the work that we paid to have the diesel fuel leak remediated.
Oh, yeah.
So it came in under $6,000, $5,425. That would be the only thing on this schedule of bills that's out of the ordinary.
Anything else? Anybody? Should we vote?
Yeah.
I'm recommending the schedule bills. All in favor? We're all in favor. Passes. Excellent. Police vehicle purchase. No, who's gonna?
I'll move to-
Yeah,
All right.
Well, let me move it, I guess, because these are action items. I move to approve the recommendation for the purchase of an electric police vehicle. Second.
So the police department is seeking to replace our current 2010 Ford Crown Victoria marked patrol car. It's the one that has the old markings, it's the black and white, says police real big on the side. It's probably well beyond its service life as far as police vehicles go. It's served us well, but we are having electronical problems with the lights, the siren, the control of the radio. There's a module that gets put inside the...
Essentially everything.
Yeah. The car runs, it just...
Siren doesn't always go off.
Well, no, legitimately, Sergeant Bernacci earlier was just saying, try to go to a car accident, turn the lights on, they wouldn't come on. So, we looked, the module isn't made anymore. We'd have to re-outfit the car with all new lights and everything else, which, you know, in a car that's well beyond the service, it probably isn't cost effective. And also, very fortunately, Jeff Eldon did a great job and was able to work with one of the vendors that does police vehicles and get us on the list for a Chevy Blazer EV, which on first take, they all got picked up by a lot of like the large New York and LA and all that other stuff. So he was able to get something worked out. We were able to get a position for one of them. If it's voted on, we're able to take that. So it will allow us to continue moving towards that electric replacement of our gas vehicles.
That's wonderful. Do we have the, could we sell the old one on
Yes.
eBay or something?
Yes, that's our plan.
$1.50.
Believe it or not, there is a market for Crown Vics. People,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, people put new engines and
Fix them up.
transmissions in them, and yeah, they redo it all. So
You gotta
somebody
get
might
that
want it.
V8 engine humming, right?
Yeah.
I'll just say that, well, this came up in public health and safety too, and there was a interesting angle to this that I hadn't thought about, which is thinking about the need, if and when our fleet goes to all electric, we have to have a reliable electric source for our fleet, because God forbid there's an ice storm or something like that, and electricity goes out, our charging stations don't work, and our police force can't get out onto the streets because the vehicles all run out of charge. So it's something we're gonna have to think about for down the line, if and when, I mean, we still will have one gas-powered vehicle, but at some point, we have to, that there's an implication here that I hadn't thought of. So Sergeant Bernacci mentioned it at our meeting. Yes, which is,
That's a good
you
point.
guys have to make sure you have some sort of generator backup, something to, if we go all electric.
That'd be a shame if we were to charge an electric vehicle with a gas generator, but.
I don't know if you do like propane or something,
Yeah.
but the other consideration, in addition to losing like power in the grid, right now, we're subject to a commercial provider that, their pedestals or whatever go out. The one has been down for a little while, and I know they're working to fix it, but, for the reliability level that we need, I think if we're gonna look to that, we need to secure this. It needs to be something that we can control.
Makes sense.
So is this building, like, if this block goes out, does this building also go out?
We have a generator. The building has a generator. And I don't know off the top of my head how many hours it lasts. I could get those numbers. But where I was going with it is that, this is the first step. Or maybe I should say the second step, since we already have an EV police vehicle. Get us to start transitioning to EV. And I do, personally, I believe there's, I'm going to suffer the consequence for saying this. I believe we have untapped resources, solar energy on the Public Works garage. And ultimately, 5-year plan, I'll say 5-year plan, construct some sort of solar array on the Public Works roof that goes to a bank, a battery pack that then be used to charge that, which is a great introduction to the next phase of this. So this is the purchasing of the vehicle, and then the diesel fuel tank that leaked, and we have 2 pumps. We have a fuel pump out here and a fuel pump in the back. We are working on a proposal to remove those, hopefully not a lot of remediation costs, and then install a level 3 EV charger in that place to have a secure location to have our police vehicles charge in the Public Works garage. And there is a grant that just became available through PICO, a bonus round for their greening, that I believe this would be a perfect candidate for it. So we are working on that. I don't have any more details to share with this committee yet, but just to plant some seeds that's what we're always looking to do. That's what we're always looking to.
Favorite word, grant.
Yeah,
My favorite.
they're coupons, right? So long as you've got a plan, they can help you reduce your costs.
Fantastic.
And I'm sorry, I didn't add the quotes to this meeting packet, but they are in the council meeting packet for the vehicle and the upfit. This will be paid out of the capital fund, and we budgeted $90,000 in the capital fund. If you remember, it's a cross year, $45,000 in 2024, $45,000 in 2025. But all said and done, it's actually coming in at $74,000. Wait, there's more? We're actually eligible for the $7,500 rebate as well. Even though we don't pay tax on it, we are still eligible for it. So that number will get reduced by $7,500.
Cool, very good. So are we voting to recommend this purchase here? Do we need a number attached to it if we're voting on it, or you don't? Okay.
Public health and safety.
Okay, so this has already been moved, so let's vote on it. All in favor? All are in favor of that. Great. Budget amendment number 2, debt service expense account labels and relocate funds between police department expense accounts.
You want to go for it?
Okay,
Start.
I move to recommend the budget amendment number 2 for council for the debt service expense account labels and reallocation of funds between police department expense accounts.
So this is budget amendment number 2, and it is a 0 net change. The first phase of this is housekeeping. Once again, our debt obligations, they were mislabeled in the 2024 budget. I didn't catch that until after the budget was passed. So this is just some housekeeping to rename them to what they should be, to better accurately reflect what the debt is. Also, through our 2023 audit, our auditor is asking us to separate the debt interest from the principal. The 2024 budget had principal and interest in each of the 4 line items. And so this also then separates principal from interest, and you're going to see the debt interest, since it was 0, it's all the same money, same amount budgeted for. This is the one that we'll need to revisit probably next month to reallocate the Series C, that $217,000, because if we're not going to take it, we're not going to be on the hook to pay it. That's the easier one. Not that the second part is difficult. Second part's coming from the police department. And this one is also a zero net change in total expenses. However, it is adjusting the total amount in expenses in office supplies. So it is increasing the expense, but I will certainly defer to Chief String to give you the details as to why he's asking for this.
So, in the police department, we're looking to upgrade our evidence storage. Currently, our evidence is stored in small, space off the main office there. And it's utilized as best as it can be with what we have, but we've gotten an influx in guns, believe it or not. I don't remember when, but the sheriff stopped taking weapons for PFA violations. So we have a number of rifles, long guns, shotguns that we have to store for an extended period of time. And right now we probably have about 40 of those that are just leaned up against some filing cabinets. So we don't have proper storage, and to try to put something in there, we're out of space. So what we're looking to do is we have access to where we store the police bikes, kind of at the back of Public Works there. And we want to make some modifications that are majority secured, but just since we're putting evidence in there, we want to create separation in there and secure it with a security fence, and then buy some appropriate materials and storage units to put all our evidence, put guns in there. They would be locked again inside the security room, just as best practice says you should have a lock to get into the evidence area and then lock all the valuables, guns in that nature too as well. So these funds are to allow Public Works, they would do the majority of the construction. So we wouldn't have an expense with that, but just buying the security gate, buying the materials. We'd also want to run a dehumidifier because it's not climate controlled. It doesn't get very hot. There's a little heater in there, but there is a humidity issue. So we want to make sure we monitor that. So we're looking to transfer funds that we have available now just into this other line item so we can spend appropriately.
I seem to recall that this was like a highlighted item several years ago when we had a consultant come in. Were you here during that time period? So, I remember they really criticized us for not having a good, secure evidence spot. I don't know what to call it. There's probably some legal term that I should know, but I'm a civil guy. Not
This will check all the boxes as far, because the hope would be to get accredited, and
well, that's what I was gonna ask you, if you know where that report might be, just to check, just make sure it meets their recommendations.
absolutely.
Okay.
That's not what we're here to recommend. We're just
No,
I'm
I'm just,
budgeting.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
So that sounds good, and the net effect is zero, right?
It is, and we don't anticipate any police recruitment fees for this year, since we're halfway through the midpoint. It's looking good.
Okay, well, all in favor of this budget adjustment? We're all in favor of this.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to discussion items. Just a quick one about, update about rules of council. It is in draft, final draft is being produced.
Yes, I need to incorporate the revisions that we discussed.
Yep,
The last council meeting, just not have a chance to do that.
Absolutely.
Which is on me before this.
no hurry.
Did President Bush actually give you written comments, or we just have his sort of insights?
Just the ones that were spoken.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I didn't know, I couldn't remember whether he said he was gonna follow up with.
Yeah, and my intent, and this was it was like theoretically I could have rushed to produce something for this, but I figured there's no.
No, it wasn't meant to be like, where is it, Mike? It was
No,
meant to be
but
like, do we need to talk to Fred to do we still need to talk to him, or do we not? I mean, I know what his comments were, but I kinda thought he said he was gonna take a full read and give us.
I think so, and that's where I'm headed was to say I think in my head, what I wanted to try to do was incorporate all of the comments that have been articulated to date, circulated again.
Okay.
And then that way, folks are looking at and then we've narrowed the universe of things, and then whatever, at this point, I think everything's kind of just been discussed, and it's a matter of making sure that we get the actual phrasing and wording correct, so.
I just didn't know whether Fred owed us.
No, I think I owe drafts to other
Okay.
folks. I am the holdup.
That's great, that's no problem. All right, let's move on from that. We're getting to boards and commissions reviews. This is, I think, a major topic tonight. And let's skip by the application form for now. Let's not look at that. There's first on here, Police Advisory Committee. Oh, let's first introduce Rebecca Starr here, who's here at our invitation tonight to talk mostly about Human Relations Commission. But you're also at the top of Police Advisory, coincidentally.
Also speak about that.
Yeah, so this is a process that we're undertaking on all 12 boards and commissions to sort of right-size them and to make sure each of them has an accurate charge, a written charge, and recommend any revisions if necessary, and also to make sure that all the commissions are sort of properly connected to council, preferably through some committee or some regular reporting to a committee discussed together. So we started off, or I understand Police Advisory has been meeting with Public Health and Safety, and Public Health and Safety has started in on a draft. That's correct?
The idea that we talked about at the Public Health and Safety Committee, Public Health and Safety Committee members are looking at it first. They're going to provide any updates, feedback. Once that's done, it'll then kind of expand and grow, include Police Advisory Committee, expand and grow, come back to the committee, and then to council.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Cool. So since I understand that is started to take place in Public Health and Safety, we'll leave that to them. And so we're going to mainly talk about Human Relations Commission tonight. And we have not done any work on this yet. We haven't really looked at the charge, but we'd be interested in your input on where we're at this time with that commission and where we'll go forward and what we can develop. Also, if there are any adjustment in number of members, we can look at and consider. Part of what we're trying to do here is make sure that not just that the boards and commissions run efficiently and are dealing with an updated charge, but that all the appointees are doing real work and are valued and we don't want them to spin wheels. We want them to have clear guidance about what they do.
And HRC is, exists, it fills a specific role within the state law. So I guess understanding, as regards number of members, are there strictures? I don't know. Are there strictures around that? And I think you might have told me this, I guess the original HRC was established to fill a gap that had existed at a time.
I probably told you that.
Or maybe
Because I was pretty involved in the drafting.
So yeah, someone had mentioned that, and I guess that gap has been rectified. So I guess the question is, are there any other gaps in state law that exist that you have the authority to cover? Maybe not, but some of those questions come to mind.
So, just for background, one of the reasons why, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act provides for the allowance of locally based human relations commissions, which generally, could do basically the same work as the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission or at the federal level, the EFC. They really were sort of moribund. Philadelphia had an ordinance, Pittsburgh, that's kind of it for a long time. But because there was a gap in coverage specifically to cover LGBTQ, wasn't covered by state law until the feds decided that Title VII could be interpreted to cover sexual orientation, etc. A lot of localities start passing local ordinances specifically to cover that gap. And that's largely how our statute came about. There are no strictures under the state law in terms of how many people can serve, etc. So they just recognize that there is a possibility that you could have local human relations commissions. They currently fill a really important role in the sense of both the EOC and the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission are incredibly backed up right now with charters. Like I tell you, I mean, I have a charge sitting at the EOC that got filed a year ago, April, and we've heard like nothing for months. The EOC has been dumping, so they have what's called a work sharing agreement. They're allowed to send, if they feel like they're overwhelmed, they'll send charges to the Human Relations Commission. And we've had a bunch of cases that have been sent to the Human Relations Commission because the EOC says they don't have time to process them. The Human Relations Commission just recently apparently said, no mas. Like, we can't take it anymore. We're overwhelmed too, and you can't send them.
You're talking about the state.
Yeah, the State Human Relations Commission. So, traditionally, like, very few people accept filing, like, in Philadelphia, back in the days when Philadelphia was the only locality that covered sexual orientation. Like, generally, we were not, as a professional, we aren't filing in the Human Relations Commission. In any of the localities, I think that there's a real opportunity here for us to be more robust if people understand that they could go to the state or federal agency and file a charge and have it fall into a black hole like for months and months and months. You know, we could act on it in a matter of weeks, if that. You know, it wouldn't be that hard. And we should be advertising that we exist and people can come to us and, you know, maybe get faster relief than they ever will.
So realistically, we have the option of taking up some of the slack in the state's work.
Somebody would have to file, so a claimant has the right to file with the feds and cross-file with either the state or a local agency. They can't file with the state and local agency, but they can file with the feds and one of them. And so people just, the default is, oh, you file with the EOC and ask for it to be cross-filed with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, or you file with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and you ask for it to be cross-filed with the EOC. We could be out there trying to convince people, you know, you have a robust Human Relations Commission, ask for it to be cross-filed with us, and we'll look at your charge.
What does that look like in terms of, like, so if we got a deluge of things, if we have the resources to be able to
It has to have occurred within the confines of NARC.
Why don't we ask Rebecca?
Right? I mean, how many charges have we gotten since the existence of the commission?
Rebecca's been on the front line of it. and,
Right.
I think she's got a great perspective of how it actually works.
This is great. I mean, this is what you guys are supposed to do, right? The big caution that I'm going to say is no matter how much Michael or I give you our understanding, despite our training and experience, we have a solicitor who ultimately will give you the last word on the legalities of all of this. So I want to preface all of our discussion with that. So, you know, that the questions that you guys are raising are exactly some of the questions. And I'm trying to figure, I want to answer the questions that you have rather than just deepen it, but I also want to make sure that everyone understands the roles of human relations commissions. The tension that you ended up with is one that we have discussed at multiple times. Do we want to be drumming up business or not, right? Do we have the capacity to really be doing what is required if we drum up business or not, or what is the role that we want to play, right? So that is without a doubt the end question, is what role do we want the Human Relations Commission to play? Human Relations Commissions both, their primary purpose is to resolve these disputes that are brought before them. However, a lot of local Human Relations Commissions also take on either an advisory capacity or programmatic capacity. We currently haven't done well, we've done that, but we've done that in more limited capacity. So after the George Floyd murder, for example, we ran listening sessions. After the acts of anti-Semitic graffiti, or the act earlier in the year in Narberth, there was some discussion about whether we should serve in an advisory capacity. So those are sort of the secondary purposes for the Human Relations Commission. I think part of the way that I think that we should be looking at this, right, is first of all, there are commissions that we have that we need to have because borough code provides it. It provides for it. Therefore, we have to have them, right? And there are those that we've put into place, and when I say we, I mean Narberth writ large. Really, you guys as borough council have put into place that are advisory committees, police advisory, environmental advisory, and they serve a purpose, but they're really nice to have. They save you doing some of the research. They engage other citizens. There are all kinds of reasons, but they're merely for this discussion advisory. Human relations is by and large a quasi-judicial entity. The Borough Council determined that we should put in an anti-discrimination statute, and once you have that statute, then you need the Human Relations Commission. So it's not just a matter of what do we want Human Relations Commission to look like, it is also what does our ordinance look like and what modifications might we want to make to that ordinance. Okay, so I think that keeping that framework in mind is sort of guides when I think about what should human relations look like. You are correct, when our ordinance was passed, it was broader than just the state ordinance. Mostly the thing that we looked at was sexual orientation and gender. I'm almost 100% sure, you may have more of this than I. Our statute also covers veteran status and marital status, and I don't believe those two are covered by the state statute or by case law.
There's a different parameter for veteran status. So it's protected under state law, but through a different.
Okay. So there's a little bit of a, there's an argument that ours is still a little bit broader.
Yeah.
Is it enough broader or not? That's a question that you guys would need to consider. That having been said, I can easily imagine instances that Narberth might want to build in some greater protection than the Commonwealth has that then might fall under our statute. For example, maybe Narberth would at some point find it desirable, and this is just, I'm relying on women's health just because it's an area that I know more about, but to say, hey, employers in Narberth need to permit women reasonable accommodations to pump at breast milk while they're working, right? We may decide that we want to do that. That is not required on the state level. If we were to decide that something like that were to go in place, then the only way to protect it would be through having our own anti-discrimination ordinance. Okay, so it becomes complex, but it's not difficult in my mind to think of instances where Narberth, the type of community that we are, might want to provide greater protections than the state does, the Commonwealth does, even though at the moment that's not what's happening. I think it's important to have some of these redundancies. I think while there's a need for coordination, and we can talk more about what might look good or necessary for us to coordinate with the state, I think we want to have these various fora to bring complaints to, because they serve different purposes to the individuals who are bringing them. Someone who really is looking to the EEOC might want the status of bringing it to the state. Maybe someone who wants it faster has us. So I think it does serve the citizens to have different fora to bring cases to. More than that, though, I feel like if I've learned nothing over the last 10 years, it is that there is strong benefit for local protections. I think that Narberth is amazing. We're a community that doesn't exist very often, I think, anymore. And we want to be able to protect our citizens. So even just signaling through having an ordinance that we are committed to anti-discrimination has incredible value. Now, if we're signaling, we also need the HRC by having the ordinance. So to me, it feels like a no-brainer that Narberth, being Narberth, should have an anti-discrimination ordinance, both because it could be used to provide greater protections and because of what it signals. Therefore, if we have it, we have an HRC. Okay. Now that still doesn't answer what should HRC look like. But that's sort of my lead in to why I think it's imperative that we maintain the HRC. Before I go on to the next piece of what I was going to bring up, do you guys have questions about that part?
I don't have any questions for that. The only thing I was kind of wondering is, are there any state law restrictions about what sorts of anti-discrimination protections we're allowed to adopt locally?
I'm sorry, say that again. I was thinking of something else for a second.
So, are there any, like in terms of, I thought you raised a good point about there may be other things that we want to provide anti-discrimination protections for in the future. Those are the things I was kind of like wondering, are there other gaps that we might end up coming across wanting to incorporate? And then my only question, and it's probably only adjacent to this conversation, but are there any state law restrictions in terms of what we're actually allowed to adopt for protections? Are there any things that state law has preempted us on, or do we have a wide ban on that sort of? Just
I would say we have a wide band. Are there any? That's outside of what I currently know.
I don't,
But I'm not aware of any.
yeah, I don't think so.
I don't feel comfortable
There
saying.
was, I'm committing legal malpractice, but I'm 99% certain that we can be broader than the state and not narrower. And the reason why I'm so close to being certain is that at one point, there was this attempt by the state to actually put a limitation on, specifically to make clear that transgenderism could not be covered. And it didn't make it through the legislature. So they actually tried to put on a restriction that said, you can't cover this. And the way it was left is, at the time, the case law was saying, well, that's clearly not covered under either the disability statute or the disability provisions, and there weren't any sexual orientation.
A query if we were to get to that point, though, where the borough council would want to kind of go rogue and allow us
Right,
to do it anyway.
right.
So maybe
But I'm saying that-
case law, but
Right, that history was there to try and affirmatively put a restriction on the locality.
what I would
and it didn't
say
get
is
through.
that there are always classes. Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are always classes that we haven't yet thought of.
Yep.
Right? And it could. The state could say, no, you can't do this, or we could see it first, or we could, like it's.
yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense. And then I think you were going to speak to maybe the size.
So I was going to speak to the size also. So there are a couple of ways, if Borough Council admitted we have had a hard time filling seats. I've tried to recruit a few people. There's some people that might be interested. I know that you guys have tried to recruit some people. What we're currently doing, because we're so lean, is really just responding to inquiries. Right? We can't do any of the proactive things, any of the programming, less of the advisory work if we don't have a body. And we currently have 3 of us. One woman who's on it has said that she's not going to be able to do much. So we're sort of feeling our way at the moment. But if Borough Council is interested in limiting the role, there are a couple of ways that I was thinking through that it could happen. None of these, I'm not here proposing the right way. I'm making a couple of suggestions. Because at the moment, we need enough people to chair, to mediate, to investigate, and to conduct a tribunal. Okay, so there are, I'm looking here at my notes for a second because I wrote it in the wrong order for what I wanted to say. But there are 2 stages to our process. So if you haven't looked at it, here's the ordinance. And then in addition to that, we, October 6th, 2020, you adopted our rules and regulations. So these are the 2 main governing documents of the HRC. There are 2 processes. You have given us what's called, I think it's expanded capabilities. I can't remember what the term of art is. But there's a complaint gets filed. We determine that there's jurisdiction. The first stage is mediation. If mediation is successful, great, end of story. If mediation is not successful, then we are given the expanded authority to resolve the case. Now, that would involve investigation, people presenting their case, and 3 members constituting a tribunal. Okay? So if we are doing all of that, then you need more people. So one example is, one option is keep the ordinance and the expanded authority intact, but make the committee 3 people. If a case goes to the process of expanded authority, then appoint people on an ad hoc basis to serve on the tribunal and to be the investigator. That's one option. One option would be, as I saw it, revoke our expanded authority, thereby ending the process at mediation. Meaning, if it's not resolved by mediation, that's the end of the story, or at that point, maybe you can file on the state level, but maybe the time has passed by which you can file. So you start getting into some of those issues as well, of whether or not there's another body that could handle expanded authority. I'm not saying that this is what we should do. I think that if we're going to exist, we probably should maintain the expanded authority. But it is an option. You could revoke that and we could just be a mediation body. You could adopt a policy, or we could, for human relations, that at the moment, any case that is also covered by a Pennsylvania statute, we have to pass jurisdiction on, and it needs to go to the state. Right? Or you could say, you should hear the mediation, but if it goes beyond that, then you need to pass it to the state for expanded authority. Right? There are 2 different places that it could get passed. The final bit that I have that I was thinking that we need to go down and do, and we may be able to divine some of these things through that, is we need to establish a memorandum of understanding between the state so that we have better communication with them. But it's possible that some of this back and forth based on their capacity, based on our capacity, may be able to be worked out by like a 5-year agreement with the state as to what we hear and what they hear.
It's a work sharing agreement is what they call it, rather than an MOU.
When we had initially started talking about it, they were calling it an MOU.
It's strange because
Yeah.
I guess maybe that develops into the formal work sharing
And
agreement.
it's okay, but the person who we first started talking to was so knowledgeable, and we were so caught up at that point in drafting the rules and regulation that we just didn't get to it, and then it kind of just fell by the wayside. So, but yes, a work share agreement, whatever it's currently being.
So I really appreciate
And I'm sorry, that's too much.
No, that's all right. No, I really appreciate you coming up with those options. We do have to wrap this up because.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right, not at all. I think there's more work to be done on this. Mike, can I ask you to?
Yeah, let's jump into that. That's my expertise.
I also have the sense that if we're really gonna consider some of those options, it should be a whole council decision, you know.
Oh, yeah, well, we have to amend the ordinance. The
Yeah.
ordinance specifically provides for mediation and investigation and adjudication.
Maybe you 2 could get together offline and come up, put these
Yep.
to paper. and,
Yep,
you know,
yep. I have
those
lots of
options
thoughts
are
spinning already, so
Okay, that's good.
we'll sit down and talk about it.
This is a good start.
They're-
Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate that.
Very helpful.
Okay, good.
We do have to wrap this up. Let's take the communication plan,
I've just got some really quick updates on the next 2 ones.
go ahead, yeah, let's do that.
Administrative staff have been working on getting some quotes for a new website. And I would just like to pick this committee's brain about what types of things you would like integrated into a website. So that'll help us navigate each of the different proposals. I don't need an answer right now, but just start thinking about that. What types of bells and whistles, as I like to call them, would you like to be integrated into a new borough website? And then the cash fund reserve policy, that's something that it is not a high priority, but it will come out as a result of the 2025 budget on how we can better manage our cash funds. And I would really encourage council to consider planning for and start funding for a cash reserve fund, which we don't currently have.
review of ongoing projects, and things that are already that we haven't mentioned. Public comment, is there anyone online in this meeting that wants,
No.
nobody, okay, I don't see anyone here. Move,
Pleasure. Oh, sorry, opposing me. I vote to adjourn.
you second, we're voting to adjourn. Everybody,
Yeah.
say good night.